Thank you for having me here, Moshito. Thank you for being here. Most of you probably know me as NickyB, not Nicky Blumenfeld, from Kaya 959. And I'm your facilitator on this topic, which I think is so pertinent today. Looking at mainstream media, podcasts, of course, mainstream media, radio, TV is still a big thing for all of us in this country. But podcasts are quickly catching up. Is there a way they're going to take over? What are the pros and cons of both of these platforms? So excuse me when I look at my phone, I'm not looking at my messages. I'm just referring to my notes. And I know we don't have much time, so I want to go into it. I'm going to introduce each of my speakers, tell you a little bit, and rather let them tell you more about what they are doing. John Savage, I didn't see John. Oh, there's John. Welcome, John. Please come up. John is a content strategist. He's a musician. He's a director. And he's a podcaster. And of course, much, much more, but I won't go into that. Multiple award-winning person. Big hand for John, please. And he's the director at In Broadcasting, which is a division of Have You Heard? And I think I'm going to leave it to him, but basically they look at innovative broadcasting and content strategy. So thank you for being here, John.
So happy to be here.
I feel like I want to get all my guests on the stage before we chat. The next the next guest is a friend of mine. Of course, he's a musician. He's a multi-platinum selling reggae and hip-hop artist. And he's a social influencer. And not only that, he was the first South African artist to sign a deal with Bob Marley's Tough Gong International Distribution. And he has performed at the Bob Marley tribute concert stage in Kingston. Don Dada, please come up. The next guest, Vovee Batala. He's the CEO of Vovee Music Production, which has been doing amazing things for well over 20 years. He's a philanthropist, an executive producer, a pianist, a sound engineer, a promoter, and so much more that happens with Vovee Music Production. But I think coming from the Eastern Cape as well, one of his great interests and passions is empowering artists from that region and really helping expose them. So Vovee, please welcome to the stage. And last but not least, our guest is Mr. Selwyn, who is now better known as Pastor Selwyn. Yes, but of course he made his mark in hip-hop in this country as a pioneer, again as an award-winning artist, and has made a huge difference to the genre, not only in pioneering the genre of South African hip-hop, but also in the work he's done subsequently, both as a creative and as a spiritual leader. So welcome to the stage, please, Mr. Selwyn. So John, maybe you can start telling us a little bit about what you are doing in this space.
Cool. So I am deep in the trenches of this podcasting space. I represent MacG, which is very tricky, but I'm working very much, my first podcast was 2009, and I really believe so much in the space. There's so much potential there. I think it really is changing the environment. We're launching in February the Africa Podcast Network, which is the biggest podcasters across the continent. We're working with everyone from Vusi Tembakwayo to everyone you can think of, Lebo Lion, all the podcasters, and trying to kind of create a community for podcasting. One of the amazing things for just coming from music and content and film in South Africa, we really live in isolation. For some reason, like community, we don't have a music community often. It's like things like Moshito are so important, and same in the film and the content field. So with podcasting, we're really working hard at building a community of podcasters that can work together and push this forward, because one thing that's really important to understand is the monetization pieces are all coming together and very fast. And what that means is there's a career in podcasting. So that was not the answer to your question, but
yes.
there it is.
Tell us a little bit about the other work that you're doing, or the work that you're doing as a whole within your company.
So there's a lot of different things. I run AMP Studios here in Newtown. It's a free empowerment hub for content creators, musicians, and YouTubers and TikTokers. It's in the Newtown Junction Mall. It's everything there is free. World-class recording studios, all type of studios, and also we do master classes and all sorts of things like that. But really, my background is in content creation and strategy, and all of the work we've created and involved in is about trying to create infrastructure for South African and African creators and taking it to the rest of the world, and making brands pay for the privilege of being associated with that.
Yes. Okay, great. Don Dada, and I want to come back to you, John. I have a couple of questions. I know there are people there as well. But Don, tell us a little bit more about your role within this realm.
Well, my journey in podcasting began with lockdown, actually. I've been focusing on my music for so long, and when I was locked in the house, I thought, look, I've got all this equipment, let me adapt it and try something different. I started my own little show. It was called Hip Hop for Life at the time, and I was interviewing a lot of my old friends I used to be a hip hop artist, right? That's where I started. So I was interviewing all of my older friends, big artists, small artists, and it started to gain a lot of traction on social media, 25K views per episode. And I thought, you know what, this is actually something quite interesting. It's a nice little hobby for me. So I took it a little bit further, and I've now signed up with the radio station, Bogart Main Radio, where I do their reggae shows Sundays, 5 to 7 o'clock on the internet, as well as in-store to 54 stores in South Africa, 44 stores across the African continent. And now I've included reggae into it, which is a niche market in a way in South Africa, but it is booming right now on the podcast scene. People are really loving it. I'm getting in contact with people all over the world, and it's opened up a new realm of opportunities for myself. I've now been doing shows in Kenya, in Tanzania, Malawi. I've been invited to the UK. So it's really changed a lot of my strategy for my career. I was very focused on South Africa, and now I'm focused on the globe, so I'm quite grateful for it.
Yes, amazing. Okay. Okay, Mr. Selwyn, since you're next in line.
Yeah. Greetings of royalty and shalom to everyone. With me, I'm here in the States the first time actually to be sitting in this panel. And it's been quite a journey because one of the pioneers of hip hop, part of the half generation, I would say, from Prophets of the City, then came us in this region of Johannesburg. So I'm in a space where I love leadership. And that's where I think we lack leadership and order and administration as artists. The people that we look up to, if we look up to Jay-Z, we look up to Akon and those people, they're a prime example of how they have streamed leadership principles in being able to sustain their talent. Now, I have a few programs. I'm more passionate about workshops, and also I have a podcast, which is fairly new. It's called Prepcast. I actually recorded M Studios. Yeah, big up. And I would really like to thank Moshito for such a setup as this. Why? I believe that we're in what I call a term age of emergence. Every 10 years, there's a change of voice. There's a change of concept. There's a change of leadership. You will see it in politics that mostly presidents will serve about 2 terms, which is almost about 10 years. And when the new one comes, it's a new voice, it's a new direction. And I think from 2020, looking at 2030, this is a new setup. And therefore, we need to prepare ourselves. That's the podcast called Prepcast. Because I have a gentleman who I met over the weekend. He surprised me because I've been speaking about this for a while, looking at the mistakes that I've made, the administration that I've overlooked, because all we want to do is to be on big stages, to showcase our gift, but we don't work on ourselves. So podcast is a new wave that says to artists, because I'm a musician, Now you need to also learn how to handle yourself in an interview. You would be shocked that for me to be here, I thought I was running late. I had a crisis. I had my son who was involved in an accident. The car was involved in an accident, not him. I had to take him to the doctor, and my day was just messed up today. All that is content for me. If there was a camera following me up until this stage, for you to see that this is the guy who won a summer award and who's a pioneer in hip-hop, had to leave it, go back to doing a 9-to-5 and become an insurance broker, came back to the music industry and went on a journey, went silent for 7 years, and now I'm a pastor. All that means something. It's transition. It is growth. So I'm here to say we need to get prepared before we get on a journey. There's a young gentleman here. He shocked me by saying, I've got a 3-year plan. I want to work on knowing sound engineering. I'm going to go and also study law. I'm going to do A, B, C, and before I even start my music career. I'm a fashion designer and all that stuff. So preparation is everything. And I'm trying to make it cool, trying to keep it simple now without it being too preachy. But that's what the podcast is all about. Yeah. You can do better than that, yeah.
Good, Vovee.
Yes.
Please tell us about these exciting things you do.
I'm feeling the pastor next to me here. Telling me like nobody's business. My name is Vovee Batala, a young man from the Eastern Cape. Grew up here in Johannesburg back in the 90s. Signed a good contract with EMI. Produced Rebecca, Ngwenya, you name it. All those gospel artists who were working at Steel Day. And then 7 years later, I tell Putsizwe Zako and I tell Baba Makabane to say, you know what? You are all big fishes here. I'm going to Eastern Cape. I'm going to be my fish there alone. Because all of you here, you have everything. We need to open the markets. Because I studied early on how USA is doing it. There's markets in Texas, West, North. South Africa, it's really, we are backwards where we have to come to Gauteng province to make things work. So I believe political, I wish they can change the GDP to say we boost other provinces too, because it's 60 million people. It's not the 10 million of Gauteng province. And all the consumers of every product that we see on TV and stuff are South Africans. The people who listen to your music, the people who support you are South Africans. They need the very same products in Cape Town, in Northern Province, and all that. But our country is still stuck. All of us, we here now, that's why there's so much traffic here. So I went back, believing that Eastern Cape needs more. And I succeeded. Went back, signed good deals with the municipalities. We worked, did a lot of youth development. There are studios that I started. My studio, government started their studio. And we went on with workshops. We brought artists to Eastern Cape to the earlier session. The guy said, key two, so it's education that is needed. Because now I'm even hearing in the room today, I'm like, there's a lot of lack of education of how to do business. Business, that's not in music industry business, just business, business management. We just need to learn those things. So I went back to Eastern Cape, and then after all the good work I did there, SABC said, we want piece of what you're doing. I was inboxed on Facebook, finished my 10 years this year with SABC as a music compiler, and as an SABC drama, SABC education drama producer. I never thought before they say I would do music to a point where I do sound design. And there's an Amabali, I'm good, how are you? I am good. I'm like, what is this now? And then I didn't know it's creative arts. And then I saw the other side of other creative brothers of ours. The DJs, the producers, content producers, the actors, we all the same. The cries of the musicians, I was like, even with the multimedia guys that we always knock and say, please play my music, please hook me up, please plug me in. The same problem that they have, we also have it too, as musicians. So in this time, I have been focusing on creative arts as a whole to assist the DJs, the actor, the musician, because we all need the platforms to sort of colorate everything that we're doing so that we can feed the consumers.
Fantastic. I think you've all brought up great points. I'm feeling really pressurized with time. Let's give them a hand. But I want to ask a question. I'm going to pose it to any of you, or all of you, which is, what are the challenges we face with this difference? I mean, I know as a broadcaster, for me, part of what I love, one of the things I love about what I do is the fact that it's live, is the fact that and that's what mainstream radio is about. It's about the moment. With podcasts, you can go back, you can tweak it, sometimes not always in your favor. If it was live, you just let it go. You retake and retake. But what are the challenges? Are the challenges with data? What are the challenges we face in this country, and how do we foresee? Is there going to be a movement where you think, will there still be mainstream media, or will it move towards the digital platform of podcast?
Great question. Look, I think from my perspective, podcasting, if we're talking about that, is a different animal, and it's not radio. What is threatening radio is the internet, not podcasting. The fact that you can listen to any radio station in the world, that's the problem that radio is facing with numbers. And podcasting is a different animal, and there's a misconception, like the podcasting industry, which doesn't exist. Let's say the podcasting snobs, they don't regard on-demand radio shows as podcasting. Podcasting is a different animal. And where we are seeing success in podcasting that is unique, that doesn't encroach necessarily on other spaces, that radio's job is to appeal to the widest audience. And so it doesn't limit, but it's a specific tone where you're trying to reach as many human beings as possible. Podcasting is niche focused. So if you just like one really weird thing that the radio station only plays once a month because it's really odd, or you're interested in extreme fly fishing or something that is a niche subject, you can find a community of 15 or 20,000 people around the world who have your niche, and you can monetize that niche. So it doesn't encourage, and that's one of the things. It's Mac G. I'll just bring up Mac. Mac is the anomaly. Then Mac is like the Michael Jackson of podcasting. You can't do what he's doing. He's just done it. He is the mainstream podcaster, but he's alone. So he's here, and everybody else is like 5 kilometers below that. But in the industry side of podcasters, people are having success by focusing on niches, a particular business, or like music publishing, or something specific. You can build an entire community and monetize it in that space. So for me, it's the threat to traditional. It's not podcast. Podcasting is a really cool new animal that is different, and it actually gives it. I was on radio and I loved radio, but I got frustrated with radio because it became a bit safe for me. I wanted something a bit edgy, and I could find it in the podcasting space. I could discover new music in the podcasting space, and I didn't have to like those 17 people who were curating what I should like. I could go and find my own stuff. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but the other thing is we run a part of our business that we create digital radio stations. So we did sports scene radio, and even with sports scene radio, what we did was, rather than creating a sort of blanket approach, we really tried to understand what this youth audience wanted and created a radio station for it that's completely reactive to how people, what the people listening to it want to hear. And that also is just a different way of looking at the same thing. So that's my thing.
No, that's amazing, yeah. And I think, Don, you touched on that as an artist, using a platform like podcast, you've expanded your audience internationally. Yes.
100%. Podcasting, I like what you're saying, that it's a completely different animal. Radio has a rigid structure. It's a fun structure at times, but it's quite rigid. News appears at this time, the shows are done at this time, certain music is played, is curated by certain people. Podcasting has so much freedom. You're limited by your mind, by your creativity. And I think that's one of the best things about it. And I think that's what also appeals to the world, because now you're catching something that seems more true to life of who that person presenting it is. Radio personalities have radio voices and radio actions and so on. Podcasting also straddles the line between television and radio, because not only are you audio, you're going visual as well now. So it's opening a whole new world. And as well as an artist, it's a new world of creating income, because now you can start looking for sponsors, you can look for completely different things that you've never thought of before. And you can also create a platform to develop others. So with podcasting, you can bring on all the younger artists and expose them to their first interviews. It's a way of grooming them, giving them an opportunity, and people would actually be interested in watching that. Whereas on radio, not a lot of the times do they like the young ones coming through, you know? So it's those kind of differences.
Yes, so there is a lot more freedom.
Yeah.
Pastor Selwyn, I won't call you Mr. anymore.
Is everybody okay? Are we speaking well? Is it reaching you? I'm just checking. One thing that I like about being in the space of a podcast is they don't have to waste too much time having to procrastinate. When do we start? You just start. You don't have to wait for big budgets and production for you to put it all together. You just need skills. You just need people who are passionate, and you just begin. And one thing though that I would like to project, as I've said, we're in the age of emergence. Like COVID has been like a flood. Like in the book of Noah, there was a flood. But now when the flood starts to assuage, when we're at the tip of a mountain, it means it's a symbol of new ideas, new concepts. So I think the way that the hip-hop industry had begun, it had people who were strategically placed. Because our audience, I'm a musician, I'm speaking to musicians, everything about my podcast will be about the niche market of musicians. So I need to form a structure, a network of, from me talking about preparation, then it goes to the next one talking about how you monetize it. From the next one, how you structure and be strategic about content. And we need to be that kind of community, so that by the time you say you have a song, you want to get promo, you already know which platform is personalized. I like what you said when you expressed that mainstream media is all about widespread appeal, but podcasts have that personalized appeal. Where I come and I tell you my story, it's all about not the music, but it is a story. And funny enough, the main thing about the music is the music. But when it comes to this day and age of information, you need to upgrade it or put a sprinkler on it and just put a bit of personality in where we talk. Right now, we are curating for Hip Hop Museum. We have put all the history of South African hip hop that I don't think most of you into hip-hop know about. So podcasts will be able to show you that there's a new world that is emerging. There's spaces that we could be able to take this further. So I think we also have to collaborate with mainstream media, because when we have an award show on a podcast, it will not hit the same way that you will see it on mainstream media. It still launches a big platform for people to get to know about you because of the integrity of mainstream media. But podcasts can grow gradually. So I'm excited for the next 10 years that are coming to see how we can grow. And I would like anyone that needs advice, that needs how do we do this, to channel you to the right direction. I am putting myself in the front through the podcast.
Oh, can you finish off for us, please?
Thank you that you mentioned 10 years. Yeah, because other things, they impact our country. How the data must fall, campaigns and all that stuff. Because in my years as a compiler, I see the music industry knocking every time to the mainstream media because they want the audiences. The audiences, they transpire to us saying, I'm gonna put these 2 songs of this boy. This song is not a good quality song, but he comes from an area that we as a station don't cover. And if this boy, I even say, go do a poster, boy. Go do a poster, say that Nicky interview at True FM on this specific day. I'm going to give you prime time because I want your audience to increase the numbers of the station. So, because the boy wants to be better in his community. The community is not online. The community is on radio. The advertisers, they buy the community, not podcasting. That's why we see now Maggie is doing very well, but sponsors, he's battling to get sponsors because it's a niche, as you are saying, there's a niche that every other podcaster focuses on. Then if advertisers and money makers are like, we're not looking for that at the moment. We still want the masses because our product is made for the masses. If Vodacom says, I'm selling 12 Rand airtime and I want still to buy time on a community radio station in Soweto to get my people to know about my 12 Rand airtime. So the masses is that it's going to take us some time because corporates keeps pumping money to where the people are. And now the podcasters, now they will battle between content and consistency, and then from consistency, sustainability of the product. We pray and hope that now Magic sustains and all the other podcasters, they sustain because you need to pay the crew, you need to pay everybody to maintain this, you need more sponsors. So it becomes money struggle, and then media is making all the money and they are closing down. What if then the mainstream media evolves and say, this show that you're doing now on radio is a podcast too?
Yes.
What are the podcasters are going to do?
We're going to unfortunately have to bring it to a close. I think John wanted to make a quick comment.
Thank you, sorry.
I feel like we've just touched the tip of the iceberg.
I just want to comment on what you're saying because there's something that is emerging that's very interesting, and that is podcasting is already doing very well in the monetization space. The reason Mac is struggling with brands is not because of his reach. Mac by himself is bigger than some radio stations, right? But the reason his controversial nature is the issue. Right. Okay. But here's what so currently there's two things that are attractive to brands in the monetization space. The first thing is that, and this is a big deal, is that traditional media's biggest challenge is that how they measure their audiences is very cloudy area, let's say, and how and how they're measured is not very there's a science to it, but it's not reliable. In the podcasting space, I can tell you how many people listened and if they skip your ad, I will tell you. So that's the first thing. The reliability of analytics is attractive to brands. The second thing is the mass reach audience, and that's why I say it's not a threat. There are brands like a cell phone network that are trying for mass. But then there are products that are specific, that they're looking for niche audiences. And there are smaller brands, thousands of them, that can't advertise on radio, but they're looking for they're selling the fishing rods for the extreme fly fishing things. Or like bicycles, what a bicycle, top of the range is like 40 grand. So when you find an audience who's going to buy a 40 grand bicycle, either you advertise on radio and hope that 1% of 1% of those listeners, or you get into the high-end bicycle podcast area. So there is space for it. A lot of the podcasters, and I do agree, so last thing is that already there's quite a lot of mainstream integration. A lot of our podcasts are becoming licensed for TV shows. And that's very interesting as well. So it's a very exciting space.
And a lot of the radios are starting to have podcast elements.
100%, yes.
I'm so sorry we have to end now. I was getting excited by the conversation, but I think it's touched on you. Okay, so if you want to ask questions, we can come on again after.
Okay, I'm being told by management that she's trying to find the people from the closing that they're trying to coordinate.
Okay.
So maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions. We'll nip it when they give us a response.
Okay.
We're trying to buy time now.
Okay, you see, this is what happens with mainstream broadcasting. You can talk for that extra minute on a podcast. I think there was somebody, when I arrived here, they said there's one person.
They said they saw it.
Okay, good.
I'm allowed to make just one more point.
Yes, please.
I want to apologize. I just think this is important for up-and-coming podcasters to cross the bridge between mainstream and podcasting. The reason a podcaster or you work in the mainstream is because they own the audience. That's a big deal.
Yes.
And that is crucial and critical, and that's why there is always a need. But the audience is owned by the broadcaster. when you start a podcast, it's a snowball. You brought it up. You're creating a snowball, but you own that audience. Someone has to pay you for access to that audience. And you see it with Mac. He is a radio station. He is a broadcaster. He owns the entire broadcaster. So you think of yourself as a broadcaster. You don't have to go, you don't have to audition because it's you. You're auditioning for your own broadcast station. And that's, then I'm done.
Yes.
One thing out of what everyone has said that is increasing my passion for it is the minute you own that audience, you can weigh that audience. And I keep on saying we're in an age of emergence. We are not going to get money out of what we do, but we get money out of what we solve. So MacG is controversial because he touches on things that we are thinking of, but no one is willing to say. So we weigh our audience, and that's when you can create loyalty. So I like what Slicker presented in one of the platforms like this in Tibo Touch. He was trying to tell corporate, like you have said, that there's those little niche people. And he was saying, if you look at Jerusalem, it was not done out of, I'm going to get 400 million, whatever. It was done out of purity. And that transcended because the timing was right. This is the right time for this. If you look at the music industry, because of the change, yes, we will have small numbers, but you will grow those numbers. And when people grow, and we are a South African, we are not known to be innovative. This is what I learned in marketing. When I was still in tertiary, I was told that South Africa is not an innovative country, but it is a country of loyalty. We were introduced to Colgate at school. We still call any other toothpaste Colgate because we are like that. So it started with little, but you will grow a strong thing. So we are getting to a point we are not afraid to express ourselves. Some are too controversial. Some are just putting the right thing. Look at what is happening.